History 102, Lecture 7, Rise of Totalitarianism, Part Germany. Germany is the most popular example of a totalitarian government in 1920s to 40s Europe. And so this part will review and to dive into some details about Germany and its totalitarian regime growing out of a political party called the National Socialist German Workers' Party. The first lesson or item we want to go over is the word Nazi, which is not a word, it's an acronym for the name of the party in German. National Socialist German Workers' Party in German, the N, and the A come from the German word for national. The Z comes from the word for socialism. The I comes from in German party is spelled like P-A-R-T-E-I. And so the I comes from party. So the name of the party is the National Socialist German Workers' Party. In German, the initials are NSDAP. And so when you read the primary documents or you study political documents, NSDAP is the actual acronym for the party, or the initials of the party, NSDAP, National Socialist German Workers' Party. The National Socialist German Workers' Party developed in the aftermath of World War I. It had several critiques of the German government at the time. Number one, the main critique of the National Socialist German Workers' Party during the 1920s with the Weimar Republic. The Weimar Republic was the governing body, was the governing name of Germany at the time. After World War I, the Weimar Republic was developed, and the main critique of the National Socialist German Workers' Party of the Weimar Republic, Germany in the 1920s, was that it was illegitimate. The German people didn't vote for the Weimar Republic, didn't pick it. It came to power in a power vacuum. At the end of World War I, the Kaiser Wilhelm's government fled Germany, and a provisional government took over, and that provisional government surrendered to the Allies. And then just after World War II, the Versailles Treaty, the Allied powers of Europe just said to this provisional government, well, you're going to keep governing Germany, becoming they were called the Weimar Republic. So the National Socialist German Workers' Party critiqued this Weimar Republic as illegitimate, weak. Early on, the first years after World War I, the German economy was horrible. The biggest issue, hyperinflation. It would cost a wheelbarrow full of German marks, M-A-R-K, German marks, to buy a loaf of bread. Hyperinflation. Big Macs for $5. No, just kidding. But anyways, and so you have hyperinflation. And so the National Socialist German Workers' Party, their critique is the Weimar Republic is illegitimate, weak, couldn't handle the economy, couldn't handle society coming apart. In the aftermath of World War I, Germany was about to come apart politically into different states and people and groups, like it existed before the 1870s. And then there's the stab in the back theory, and this is an extremely important idea that was popular among a good section of the German public in the 20s and 30s, is the theory or the idea that the German army in November of 1918 was still fighting their war. They were still fighting. They were in the field fighting. They were not defeated militarily, so to speak. The argument goes that Germany surrendered, that when the Kaiser's government, Kaiser Wilhelm, who was ruler of Germany during World War I, when Kaiser Wilhelm government fell apart and he fled Germany, this provisional government, these other political leaders that took over, called themselves the provisional government, and they surrendered to the Allies. And so the stab in the back theory among a lot of German veterans, it was a very popular idea among German veterans in the 1920s and then later, that the German government stabbed the German veterans in the back. You were still fighting the war. You were bravely fighting for Germany, for your people. And what did the government do? Did the government support you? No, the government stabbed you in the back. And so this is a very important political slogan or idea to remember. If you wanted to win votes in 1920s Germany among disaffected people, World War I German war veterans were an extremely disaffected group in the 1920s. Very upset. And so one way to rally German war veterans is, hey, your government did not support you. You were out giving your life for the German nation, for the German people. And what did your government do? They stabbed you in the back and surrendered while you were still fighting. And so that, for the National Socialist German Workers' Party, that was a very effective argument to make to people at the time. The Social Democrats were the majority party of the era. The Social Democrats were a political party in Germany. They had existed since the 1870s. They've been around. The Social Democrat political party is a political party in Germany. By World War I, they were the biggest political party. They were it. When the provisional government developed, the Social Democrat Party was the one that took over. Social Democrats were the ruling party in the 1920s. They won most of the elections, nationally, federally, and state. Germany has states just like we do, and they have a federal system just like we do. And so Social Democrats generally won at the federal level, and they also won at the state level quite a bit. The National Socialist German Workers' Party's critique of Social Democrats, the ruling party during the 20s, was that they were a tool German enemies to keep it weak. They kept that stab in the back. They kept that knife in the back. You people were stabbed in the back. The German people were stabbed in the back. Well, Social Democrats made sure the knife was still there. The National Socialist German Workers' Party, what's interesting is the National Socialist German Workers' Party candidates, their main audience were working class Germans too, the proletariat. And their argument against communists is a Jewish conspiracy to divide Germans against each other to keep them weak. Now, what's interesting, though, is when you read National Socialist speeches, whether Jews were brought up or not depended on their audience. You can read a lot of speeches of National Socialist candidates from Adolf Hitler on down that don't mention Jews at all. Because, if I'm a disaffected factory worker, former war veteran, disaffected factory worker, I don't care about Jews. I care about, my job, my security. And so the critique of the communists is that they would destroy German society through class war. I mean, you wouldn't get ahead. You working class Germans, you wouldn't get ahead. You'd be destroyed in a class war. And so the main critique of communism, one of the Jewish conspiracy, but also that communists would rip German society apart. For the National Socialist German Workers' Party, all Germans should unite together and work towards a common goal: success of the German nation. So dividing it up in classes would be inappropriate. the German government critiqued capitalism as well. Also a Jewish conspiracy to drain the wealth out of Germany and help Germany's enemies, mainly France and Great Britain. And then, like I mentioned in the first video, what is fascism? National Socialist political philosophy argued that, capitalism is discredited in the economic downturn of World War I and the 1930s. Right. When you study the strength of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, what you notice is for most of the 20s they're very weak. They only get one or two members in the Reichstag, the parliament, Berlin, the federal parliament. What's interesting is after 1929, the NSDAP did really, really well. Why? Because of that critique, the capitalist critique. Germany's enemies are destroying the German economy and the German nation. And communists will make it worse. So the argument is the communists won't make it better. They'll really destroy Germany in class war, class conflict. The Social Democrats are in the middle of destroying Germany by being tools of Jewish and capitalist bankers and financiers. And so the success of the National Socialist German Workers' Party after 1929 lay in that economic critique. Not just the stab in the back theory, but also that economic critique. The communists will make it worse. Don't vote for them. The communists will really destroy Germany. The Social Democrats are in the middle of doing it right now. And so when you look at how the NSDAP does after 1929, they start getting a lot of votes to the point in the summer of 1932, the National Socialist German Workers' Party is the largest party in the Reichstag, the German parliament. So you go from 1928, one member in the Reichstag is a National Socialist, to about 150 in the summer of 1932. They become the largest party in the Reichstag. By the summer of 1942, guess who the number 2 party was? The Communists. And then Social Democrats were... So what's funny about the Social Democrats, they still controlled government, but in the Reichstag in the summer of 1932, they were only the 3rd strongest party. But they still controlled the government, the Prime Minister and the cabinet, because the aristocratic elite were still able to hold on to control and run Germany, even though National Socialists and Communists were the 2 bigger parties by that point. But anyway, so going back to the National Socialist critique of German society at the time, and why they start winning after when the Great Depression starts. It's a very effective economic messaging, right? Social Democrats are in the process of destroying Germany right this second. The Communists are going to do worse, and then the other political parties, like there's a Center Party, they're not going to do anything, and so that's how you get Germany, the National German Workers' Party, the largest party in Germany by the 30s. Specifically Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler is, again, another example of this totalitarian idea of the leader. The word leader in German is Führer, F-U-H-R-E-R. And so it's kind of funny to me today, just as an aside, like Führer is just the word for leader. Like the German Prime Minister today is called the Führer. He's a Führer. He's a leader. But you can't, want to call him that because it's attached to one individual. But the German word for leader is Führer, F-U-H-R-E-R. So a leader of a business, anyone, is a Führer, a leader. But for National Socialists, the idea of the leader, the dear leader, the leader, You have one man that envisions the nation, envisions the ideals of the nation. And so for National Socialists, Hitler was that man. For communists, Stalin was that man. For Italian fascists, Mussolini was that man, right? And so whenever you study these totalitarian regimes, you have the idea of the leader who implements the will of the people, the nation. Okay? So a little bit about Hitler's journey. What's interesting about Adolf Hitler is before World War I, people that knew him, his biographers, researchers, he's pretty apolitical. Before he's a young man, he's pretty apolitical. You don't see a lot of his political point of view. He's pretty apolitical. He grew up in Austria. He's Austrian by nationality. He's German by ethnicity, Austrian by nationality. Father was a civil servant. There is a myth. It's not true. There's some people that run around saying he had Jewish ancestors. That's not necessarily true. Where that rumor starts is Hitler's grandpa had some affairs. And so who exactly Hitler's grandparents are, grandmother is open to debate. And so that's where that rumor comes from. I as a historian think the evidence is not there to support the idea that Hitler had Jewish ancestors, but it's used today to make Hitler look hypocritical, I guess, or ironic. Oh, yeah, he most likely didn't have Jewish ancestors, but where that comes from is his grandfather, one of his grandfathers was not faithful. So who that grandmother is could be open. What develops Adolf Hitler's political point of view? Two things. Number one, as a young man in his 20s, Adolf Hitler moved to Vienna and lived in Vienna, and he wanted to be an artist. He was practically homeless. He lived in in Europe. They had flop houses. What a flop house was, it was like a homeless shelter. You paid a little bit of money for a place to sleep and eat. It was called a flop house. Imagine a guy's college dorm room. So I've been in those. I've lived in them. Anyways, the guy lived in a flop house. And what Hitler saw was, you have all these people, we're all the same people, we're all German, or Austrian, or German, but how the rich treated the poor, how, wealthy German, we're all German, we're all people, we're all the same people, but the disdain, the snobbery, kind of developed Adolf Hitler's kind of attitude of, why class differences are bad. And to be honest, that was a common critique. The class system in Europe is pretty pronounced historically, and so that's an easy critique to make, is how classes treated each other. Historians note that kind of not liking Jews kind of comes from this period as well. World War I is kind of politically wakes Adolf Hitler up, and he writes it himself that in his biography that World War I really wakes him up to make something of himself and Germany, right? So how does Hitler begin his political journey as a political leader? After World War I, Hitler is discharged from the military. The war is over. Hitler had actually been caught in a gas attack right as the war ended. When the war ended, Hitler was actually in a Berlin hospital. He had been caught in a gas attack a month earlier. And so he begins his political journey. He's He's injured. He's a war veteran. He's injured. He fought in World War II as a corporal. He's a war veteran. He's injured. He feels stabbed in the back. He writes his biography when he's sitting blind in a hospital, temporarily blind from mustard gas, blind in a hospital, and the depth of despair and the blindness, that stab in the back theory is like a core thing. Anyways, after the war, Hitler's discharged from the military, but the military hires him back to spy on revolutionary groups. The political situation in Germany after World War I is extremely chaotic. The provisional government's in power, but barely. All over Germany, you have hundreds of these little parties, political parties, and revolutionary groups trying to take control in Germany, trying to knock off the government, take over the government. The only thing keeping the German government, the provisional government in power, is the military. The military comes home from World War I. Their next job is maintaining the power of this provisional government that supposedly the government stabbed in the back. That's kind of an interesting thing with that stab in the back theory. The military comes home, and their main job is to stop all these revolutionary groups from knocking off the government. There's communists, fascists, anarchists, aristocratic elite. It's chaotic. So the military the military after World War I in Germany they start hiring ex-veterans, war veterans, and they're civilians now, to go in and spy, inform on all these revolutionary groups so the military can go after them. Adolf Hitler is assigned, he's hired, and he's assigned to this political party in Munich. Mr. Bills, how big is this political party? It's 6 guys in the back of a beer hall, a bar. That's a lot of these revolutionary groups. That's what it is. It's like a bunch of 6 guys in the back of a bar screaming about how horrible the government is and how they're going to do something about it. And long story short, too late. And this new political party that started, Hitler is supposed to spy on them. He comes to like them, and he eventually joins and becomes the leader. Because why? The people around Hitler, this political party, these little political party leaders, they realized that Adolf Hitler had a hidden talent, public speaking. It's a hidden talent. No one knew this before. Hitler writes he himself didn't know. But Hitler had a penchant for public speaking. And so what happens is, how they find out is, when these political party guys go out and try to talk to people, they get ignored. When Adolf Hitler goes out to speak, people listen. He's hypnotic. He's charismatic. He draws people in, and they listen. Some people who've heard Hitler's speeches called it hypnotic. It was like they were just drawn in and they listened to the leader, right? And so within a couple of years, Adolf Hitler is the leader of this party. It's renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Adolf Hitler becomes the leader. He and the people around him, they develop the myth, the culture, the symbolism, the organism of National Socialism. It becomes the development of a political philosophy, where there's specific National Socialist history, National Socialist religion, National Socialist culture, National Socialist language. And so almost a parallel society. Okay. In 1924, this new party, the National Socialist German Workers' Party in Munich, Adolf Hitler decides he's going to do what Benito Mussolini did 2 years earlier. Adolf Hitler likes Mussolini. He reads about him, thinks Mussolini's great. And how did Mussolini come to power? All Mussolini had to do is what? Get all his followers together, march on Rome. The government handed over power. Hitler, the same thing's going to happen. Hitler's like, I'm going to do that. 1924, the Munich Beer Hall pushed. The National Socialist German Workers' Party, they get together. It's a lot smaller crowd than Mussolini, hundreds. Mussolini had tens of thousands of black shirts of his political party marching. The Munich Beer Hall pushed, 100 show up. And what's supposed to happen is this, just like in Italy, Hitler's going to march on the Munich. Munich was the capital of Bavaria, the state of Bavaria. What's supposed to happen was Hitler's going to march on the Munich government headquarters, take over, and then the government in Berlin the federal government in Berlin would just go, here's the government. Just hand over the government like Mussolini. And the police show up, start shooting, and Hitler is arrested, put on trial, and he'll be sentenced to a year in prison. He'll serve about 9 months, and that's where he writes his book, Mein Kampf, which is my struggle. Mein Kampf is kind of it's his biography, but it's also Adolf Hitler's articulation of National Socialist ideology. To go into a little more depth to understand National Socialist race theory, and where everyone fits into that. So in National Socialist history, in National Socialist interpretation of history, sometime in the ancient past, there were people, a group of people, an empire, a group of people called the Aryans, Aryan. Okay. They were Indo-European. They lived, Samaria, Iraq. They were pure Aryan. They were a pure race, pure Aryan. And the argument is in National Socialist historical interpretation, these Aryans started to migrate and spread throughout the region. Some went to India, some went to Europe. And so, kind of the first Europeans, these original Europeans, were Aryan. They were a pure race. They didn't mix with other people. Okay. And so the argument is, so for Adolf Hitler, Germans, like all Europeans, Germans were descendants of this ancient Aryan race. The problem is, Germans had intermixed so much with other non-Aryan people, that they'd lost their racial purity. Okay. And so, so again, going back to fascist ideology, this idea of what is the nation, what is a German. Okay, so for Adolf Hitler, the idea of a German is this idea of you're a descendant of this ancient race. Really quick as an aside, there is an Aryan Empire in India, Aryan, that is not related to National Socialist race theory. So, just want to make kind of that aside. There actually is an Aryan Empire in ancient India. It's not connected to National Socialist history, though. It's different. But anyways, how National Socialist history does kind of connect with real history or actual history is that, how is Europe settled? You have Indo-European people ancient Sumer, ancient Persia, they kind of spread out. Indo-European languages kind of spread out. Now, whether they were a pure race, that's obviously the National Socialist race theory. But anyway, so in National Socialist history and race theory, Germans are on a spectrum of racial purity. Nordic Europeans, people from like Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, would be the most Aryan. They intermixed the least with non-Aryan groups. Germans would be in the middle, like English and German would be in the middle, and then the most race mixing would have been Slavic and Greek people. So in the hierarchy of racial groups, right, Nordic people at the top, Germans, English people in the middle, French, and then at the bottom are Greeks, Slavs, Italians are kind of down there too, but definitely Slavic people and Greeks. Okay. So where do Jews come into it? Okay. When you study Jewish history in Europe, it's one of discrimination, of subversion. The European idea of the Jewish person is that he is subversive. That the Jewish person is an eternal Jew, like the propaganda movie. A Jew cannot assimilate. A Jew cannot be German. They're eternally subversive, trying to destroy society. Okay. And so where Jewish culture comes into National Socialist race theory is Jews are the ultimate non-Aryans. Jews are the ultimate non-Aryans who only seek to destroy. They're not assimilatable. They can never become German. They're always Jews. Okay. Some races are meant to rule, Aryan, and some are meant to be a labor class. For National Socialist race theory, the purpose of Slavic people was to work for the pure Aryan. So you're a labor class. So race mixing is wrong as it dilutes the purity of the Aryan race. So the Aryan women should have lots of children. Non-Aryan people should be sterilized. Right. The goal in National Socialist race theory, the goal is to restore Germanic people to their quote-unquote ancient Aryan racial purity. Okay. So when National Socialist party candidates like Hitler and others ran for political office, they had a specific campaign. And why this is important is this. After World War II, you have a lot of people that are shocked at Hitler. We didn't know Hitler would do that. We didn't know. And why that is not accurate is National Socialists were very open about what they were going to do. People just didn't take them seriously. People just, not happening to do that. Like when Hitler said he didn't like Jews and was going to do something about it, most other Europeans are like, well, we don't like Jews either. Come on. No one likes Jews. Come on. They just, when Hitler said he was going to do something about it, he wasn't taken seriously. So after World War II, you have a lot of people that act shocked. We didn't know Hitler was going to do all these things. That's not accurate. You did. You just didn't take it seriously. Okay. National Socialists campaigned on reversing the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles came to be seen as oppressive to Germany. It kept Germany weak. It kept Germany subservient to its enemies. Okay. We're going to bring about German glory in a Third Reich. Reich is the German word for empire. The First Reich is the Holy Roman Empire in medieval Europe. The Second Reich was Bismarck's Germany, the Germany of World War I. The Third Reich is National Socialist Germany. So we're going to bring about German glory in the Third Reich. We're going to punish Germany's enemies. Okay. Hitler promises to do all these things. He's open about it. Okay. What do you mean when you say reverse the Treaty of Versailles? The Treaty of Versailles said you can't have a military. You can have a small one. So we're going to rearm. You lose your industrial heartland to France. Hitler says we're going to get it back. The Treaty of Versailles takes German territory and gives it to other countries like Poland and Czechoslovakia. Pop quiz. what were two of the three first countries that the German military marched into? Poland and Czechoslovakia. That's not a, coincidence. The Treaty of Versailles says you're going to pay war reparations. National Socialists say we're going to stop paying that. Hitler comes to power in January of 1933. The people, the Social Democrats and the aristocracy in control of the German government argue that, well, the National Socialists are the largest party in the Reichstag, and we can control Hitler. We can control him, and, So in January of 1933, Adolf Hitler comes to power. What does he do? He rearms Germany. He reoccupies the Rhineland from France. I don't have it up here, but he marches into Austria in 1938. Takes over Czechoslovakia in 1938, and then Poland in 1939. He immediately starts reversing the Treaty of Versailles. Great Britain and France don't do a dang thing about it. Okay. Hitler does everything he's supposed to do. Okay. And so we're going to end that video. It's a little long. Bear with it. Thank you for your patience.